This video is part 2 of a 4-part series. If you haven't watched part 1, we recommend you go ahead and click on the link in the description before watching this video, as we're picking up right where we left off. In part 1, Jung concluded with the idea that Hitler's power is not at all political, but magic.
What do you mean by magic?
To understand this, you must understand what the unconscious is. It is that part of our mental constitution over which we have little control, and which is stored with all sorts of impressions and sensations, which contains thoughts and even conclusions of which we are not aware. Besides the conscious impressions which we receive, there are all sorts of impressions constantly impinging upon our sense organs, of which we don't become aware because they are too slight to attract our conscious attention. They lie beneath the threshold of consciousness. But all these subliminal impressions are recorded. Nothing is lost. Someone may be speaking in a faintly audible voice in the next room while we are talking here. You pay no attention to it, but the conversation next door is being recorded in your unconscious, as surely as though the latter were a dictaphone record. While you sit here, my unconscious is taking in quantities of impressions of you. Although I am not aware of them, and you would be surprised if I should tell you all that I have already learned unconsciously about you in this short space of time. Now, the secret of Hitler's power is not that Hitler has an unconscious more plentifully stored than yours or mine. Hitler's secret is twofold. First, that his unconscious has exceptional access to his consciousness, and second, that he allows himself to be moved by it. He's like a man who listens intently to a stream of suggestions in a whispered voice from a mysterious source, and then acts upon them. In our case, even if occasionally our unconscious does reach us as through dreams, we have too much rationality, too much cerebrum to obey it. This is doubtless the case with Chamberlain. But Hitler listens and obeys. The true leader is always led. We can see it work in him. He himself has referred to his voice. His voice is nothing other than his own unconscious. That is what makes him powerful. Without the German people, he would not be what he seems to be now. It is literally true when he says that whatever he is able to do is only because he has the German people behind him. Or, as he sometimes says, because he is Germany. So, with his unconscious being the receptacle of the souls of 78 million Germans, he is powerful. And with his unconscious perception of the true balance of political forces at home and in the world, he has so far been infallible. That is why he makes political judgments which turn out to be right against the opinions of all his advisors and against the opinions of all foreign observers. When this happens, it means only that the information gathered by his unconscious and reaching his consciousness by means of his exceptional talent has been more nearly correct than that of all the others, German or foreign, who attempted to judge the situation and who reached conclusions different from his. And, of course, it also means that, having this information at hand, he is willing to act upon it.
I suppose that would apply to the 3 really critical decisions he made, each of which involved the acute danger of war. When he marched into the Rhineland in March 1936 and into Austria in March 1938, and when he mobilized and forced the Allies to abandon Czechoslovakia. Because in each one of these cases, we know that many of Hitler's highest military advisors warned him against doing it, since they believed the Allies would resist, and also that if war came, Germany would be bound to lose.
Precisely. The fact is that Hitler was able to judge his opponents better than anyone else. And although it appeared inevitable that he would be met by force, he knew his opponents would give in without fighting. That must have been the case, especially when Chamberlain came to Berchtesgaden. There, for the first time, Hitler met the elder British statesman. As Chamberlain proved later at Godesberg, he had come to tell him, among other things, not to go too far or Britain would fight. But Hitler's unconscious eye, which so far has not failed him, read so deeply the character of the British Prime Minister that all the later ultimatums and warnings from London made no impression whatever. Hitler's unconscious knew. It didn't guess or feel. It knew that Britain would not risk war. Yet Hitler's speech in the Sports Palace, when he announced to the world a holy oath that he would march into Czechoslovakia, October 1st, with or without the permission of Britain and France, indicated for the first and only time that Hitler, the man, in his supremely critical moment, had fear of following Hitler the prophet. His voice told him to go ahead, that everything would be all right. But his human reason told him the dangers were vast and perhaps overwhelming. Hence, for the first time, Hitler's voice trembled, his breath failed, his speech lacked form, and trailed off at the end. What human being would not be afraid in such a moment? In making that speech, which fixed the destiny of perhaps hundreds of millions of people, he was a man doing something of which he was deathly afraid, but forcing himself to do it because it was ordered by his voice.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Turn on the notifications to make sure you don't miss part 3. See you next week.